Hello guys, and welcome back to the Fluent Pilot channel. This video is a little different from what we had so far, and that's because today we're going to be talking about grammar and pronunciation issues, and that is about stress patterns. The thing is, in English, when you go from a verb to a noun, or vice versa, for the very same word, you will sometimes need to change the stress, meaning to stress a different syllable. And what's even more surprising, in some cases, this might completely change the meaning. So let's put all this into aviation context and take a closer look at particular examples. Alright, there's a whole bunch of words that actually fall under this rule, and I suggest starting from those ones which do not change the general meaning. Our first example will be impact. If it's a noun, it means a collision or the striking of one thing against another, and we stress the first syllable, impact, like in the following sentences. Before impact, the captain ordered the crew to secure themselves at their assigned emergency stations. Or, supercooled water droplets start to freeze on impact with the aircraft surface. But when we use it as a verb, we will need to stress the second syllable, to impact, meaning to collide or to influence. Normal checklists include only those items that can really impact flight safety if actions are not performed correctly. Or, the airplane initiated a go-around but failed to gain altitude and impacted the ground. Another good example is the word reject, with the general meaning of refusing or not accepting something. In the aviation context, it is most commonly used when talking about aborting the takeoff. Again, if you use it as a noun, you stress the first syllable, a reject. After V1, a reject should only be considered if there is a strong reason to believe that the aircraft will not fly. Or, stopping action must be initiated promptly after the reject decision. But when it turns into a verb, we say to reject. If a predictive wind shear warning is generated during the takeoff roll, the captain must reject the takeoff. Or, a decision to reject the takeoff will require immediate retarding of thrust levers. Likewise, consider the word permit. Being a noun, it denotes a document which authorizes you to do something. Like with the previous words, it is required that you stress the first syllable in this case, permit. You need a permit to enter a restricted area of the airport. Or, a permit to fly is a document issued for airplanes which do not qualify for a certificate of airworthiness. But when you describe an action of allowing something to happen, then you permit. Take a look at the following examples. Pilots should be encouraged to switch off the autopilot and manually fly the aircraft below 15,000 feet if traffic and weather permit. Or, the basic license does not permit the pilot to fly in instrument meteorological conditions. Okay, let's move on. Our next item on the list is conduct. It means behavior or the way of organizing or arranging something. Air traffic control provides advice and information to assist the pilot in the safe conduct of a flight. Or, the airline may refuse to carry any passengers whose conduct or condition threatens the safety of its employees or other passengers. In the form of a verb, it sounds like to conduct. Security conducted a search of the passenger cabin. Or, missed approach is a maneuver conducted by a pilot when an instrument approach cannot be completed to a landing. The next is record. Basically, it's a piece of information written on a paper or stored in a computer. A log is a written record of a flight, flight hours, maintenance checks, etc. for an aircraft engine or propeller. Or, the NTSB investigated records of 10 similar flights. But don't forget to change the stress when using it as a verb, to record. The flight plan records the call sign and the number of people on board. Or, pressure values are recorded by probes installed in the engine inlet and at the exhaust. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of more examples. Like transfer as a process of moving something from one place or group to another. External cooling of the engine is necessary to prevent the transfer of heat to the aircraft structure. Or, the trim tank transfer system controls the center of gravity of the airplane. But should you use it as a verb, don't forget to shift the stress to the second syllable, to transfer. A jet pump or fuel ejector is used to transfer fuel from the tanks. Or, pilots should learn how to transfer duties during operationally complex situations. Finally, the same stress pattern works for recall versus to recall, with the general meaning of remembering something or bringing back to memory. Compare the following examples. There are actions that should be accomplished immediately by recall whenever a TCAS traffic advisory or resolution advisory occurs. But some high-frequency radios have the capability to preset several frequencies that can be recalled with a 2 or 3-digit code, like auto-dialing a telephone. Some checklists help the crew recognize evidence of emergency situations and provide recall steps. But you may recall from aerodynamics that the lift depends on both the angle of attack and the velocity of air moving over the surfaces. The situation with the next couple of words is a little more complicated, and I'm talking about increase and decrease, meaning growth or reduction in size, strength, or quality correspondingly. And in some parts of the world, you might come across a situation when not only you should stress the second syllable when using it as a verb, but you should also vocalize this sound. It's increase, but to increase, and decrease, but to decrease. Take a look. Lower engine RPM results in an increase in the rate of descent, but the function of the flaps is to increase lift and drag. Or, a gust is a sudden increase in wind speed above the average, which lasts only for a few seconds. But the frequency of flights to holiday destinations increases during the summertime. A decrease in power causes the aircraft to descend, but to correct a slip, the pilot should decrease the bank. Or, the aviation authorities detected a decrease in the level of safety in the general aviation segment. But spoilers are used during the descent prior to landing and immediately after landing to decrease lift. Now in the second part of the video, let's devote a few moments to some words which do change the meaning when we shift stress while going through this noun-verb transformation. For example, object and subject change into object and subject with a significant change in the meaning. Obviously, object is a thing or a person or a matter to which action is directed, or anything that you can see or touch. For instance, the crew detected foreign object debris on the taxiway. But when it's a verb, you pronounce it as to object, and it means to be against something or to complain. Pilots objected to the introduction of longer working hours. In a similar way, subject, which is something that is being discussed or considered or studied, requires that the first syllable is stressed if it's a noun or an adjective. Like for example, understanding of the subject of ice accretion is essential so this hazard can be minimized. Or, the airspeed indicator is subject to error. It turns into subject if it's a verb and it means to bring under rule, control, or influence, or to expose something. Internal engine sections are subjected to air pressure of different values. Or, plane makers subject their aircraft to rigorous tests. And last but not least in our top 10 is content. If it's a noun, it means anything which is contained within something, or the amount of particular substance contained in something. The water content of turbine fuels tends to corrode the components of the combustion system. Or, pilot in command is in control of and responsible for the aircraft and its contents during flight time. The stress pattern is similar, so we have to stress the different syllable to get a different meaning. This time, however, the word turns into an adjective, and it means satisfied or pleased. The approach was flown with full flaps, and the pilot was content with the speed and the flight path angle. Or, the passengers looked content and were enjoying the in-flight entertainment system. Okay, I think you got the idea. Of course, there are many more words like that. Look them up if you are not familiar with them. Anyway, make sure you stress them correctly, and this will certainly improve your chances for a higher score in your ICAO English test. Alright, stay tuned, check out other aviation English activities at our website, and don't hesitate to support the project if you need more of those. That's it for today. See you next time. Cheers!